Hi and welcome and Merry Christmas.
And a Happy New Year.
We're so glad you've joined us for this final episode of season 4. We've had a lot of new subscribers in the last few months, and we are so glad that you've joined us and hope that you will stay tuned because we have more in store. It's been a minute since we did a video. We got home in early November and we jumped right into doctor's appointments and RV maintenance and resetting up our house and all kinds of things that we'd been putting off since we were on the road for almost a whole year. So yeah, there was the dust bunnies were piling up. It's really quite sad. And then it was Thanksgiving and we had kids here. And now it's
almost Christmas.
So the year has kind of
flown by.
It has flown by and it's been quite a year.
Let's take a look back at season 4, 2022 travels.
We started 2022, actually in January, I believe it was, driving to Disneyland with our daughter and her family, which was just a blast. It was really fun. We took the RV and we stayed in Orangeland RV Park, which we do recommend, by the way.
Yeah, it was
It's
good.
Like any park in California, it is not inexpensive.
And
like
it's not like
in California.
Yeah. And the sites are close together.
They are, but there's orange trees.
Yeah.
And grapefruit and all kinds of fruit trees that you're welcome to pick from, which is very cool.
So the miles on our first RV trip of the year to Disneyland was about 760.
In March, we took Phoebe, the pet sitter, packed our bags, grabbed our passports and our COVID tests, and jumped on a plane for Tel Aviv, Israel. This was going to be our first trip with a tour group, and so we really weren't quite sure what to expect, but
the trip was a bucket list for me. I really wanted to see Israel, and I was very interested in Egypt as well.
You bet. Now we did quite a long. There's a long playlist of the videos that we did in Israel, and so if you'd like to watch them, I highly recommend taking a look because we went to a lot of places and saw a lot of different things. So I'll link that in the description below.
And we really loved the opportunity to see where the Savior lived and the kind of environment he was in. The amount of hills was
had no idea
how hilly that country was. And the Garden Tomb and Gethsemane, those were real highlights.
Those are really.
But also Capernaum and the area where he spent most of his time up by the Sea of Galilee. That was pretty neat.
It was. And then in Egypt, who can forget the camel ride, right?
Yeah. And I was really glad I got a chance to go inside of a pyramid. That was pretty neat.
Yeah, there was a lot of really cool things. On this trip, we traveled by plane to Tel Aviv, then got on buses and traveled around Israel, including Jerusalem, and then back to Tel Aviv, by plane to Cairo, by train to Luxor, by plane back to Cairo, then by plane to Paris, and then finally to Salt Lake. So by our best calculation, that trip was 16,185 miles round trip.
Wow, that was a long trip.
That was.
So we got home at the end of March, and we had basically 1 month to get ready for our trip to Germany. And the plan was to fly to Berlin and then take 2 weeks on our own and drive through various sections of Germany and then arrive in Munich, where we would meet up with the tour group that was going to Avocado. And we went to the Passion Play, and then we also did a Rhine River cruise. Again, we have a full playlist of that experience, and we have the link below for that.
Now, as for the highlights of that particular trip, well, the Passion Play experience, especially for me, Passion Play was a bucket list item for me, it was truly amazing. The music was stunning, just really
was quite amazing.
Beautiful. It's quite a production,
and it's quite amazing to just have the people from the town do it.
Yeah,
it's incredible that they can put on that kind of production.
It really
from
is.
Such a small town.
It really is. And then I'd have to say, visiting Zost, where Derek served his mission for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I was going to nursing school at the time he was on his mission, and we were riding back and forth. And so I'd heard about all these places, but I had never seen it. We have a couple of videos about Zost itself, and that was really fun. It was really fun to go there.
And then I really enjoyed being able to go to Scene and Karlsruhe and visit some of the places where my ancestors came from. That was pretty neat.
Yeah.
Und der Schmied hieß Schmidt.
Yeah.
Karl Schmidt.
Oh.
So
Das Haus.
where this house is
Ja.
is where there was a blacksmith shop,
Uh-huh.
and the smith at that blacksmith shop was Karl Schmidt.
Oh, okay. Was it
Perhaps,
your cars? Might be, yeah.
perhaps.
Yeah, we don't really know, but yeah. And then something else that I loved in Rudersheim, which is one of the places we stopped, we got to go to Siegfried's Mechanical Music Cabinet, which is a delightful museum filled with antique, or at least vintage, mechanical instruments. And it was
indescribable. I'd never seen
indescribable.
mechanical playing of violin before, but they had it. It was
crazy.
amazing.
It was crazy. Oh my goodness. There was one particular instrument I just fell in love with, and I can't resist including that clip again. So take a listen.
We are going now to hear the entry of the gladiators. Please be careful with the ears. It plays very loud. Just make so.
So on this trip, we traveled from Salt Lake City to Amsterdam and then Berlin, of course, all by plane. Then we rented a car in Berlin and drove from Berlin to Dresden, Freiburg, Leipzig, Wittenberg, Soest, Dusseldorf, Frankfurt, Siegen, Karlsruhe, and finally to Munich. And that took us about 2 weeks to do that. And it was just so much fun. Fortunately, they do drive, you know,
On the same side
on
of
the
the
same
road.
side of the road as we do. So that made it a little bit easier. In Munich, we met up with the tour group and we jumped on the buses again and made our way to Oberammergau. And then we went through Austria, Switzerland, and finally in Basel, where we got on the Alma Waterways cruise riverboat and cruised up the Rhine and got off in Amsterdam. We rented a car in the Netherlands, drove around there for a few days, and then got on a plane and flew home to Salt Lake. So that was a huge trip.
It was.
We were gone about a month. It was crazy.
It was crazy. As far as we can figure out, it looks like the number of miles on that trip, 12,854 miles.
Wow.
That's a lot of miles.
Whoa. All right, but we're not done yet.
No.
We got home in early June and then started getting ready for the big RV trip. Now, remember, we had an accident
Yep.
with the RV and the Jeep in between the two trips. So we had to take our RV to the shop and the Jeep to the shop, and it was a big mess. And of course, there's a video about it. So if you want to relive that whole drama with us, the link is in the description below.
So finally, around mid-July, we set off. And so we went up to Idaho, visited the kids, and on our way up there, we visited Monticello, Utah, Mesa Verde,
yeah.
went up to Vernal, where the Dinosaur National Park is, or I guess it's a monument, and then up to Craters of the Moon National Park
We did that
in
with the
Idaho.
grandkids.
Yeah, we
was
did
fun.
that with the grandkids.
That was
And we
fun.
saw the Potato Museum.
We did. The
Yeah.
potato. We'll link
Potato
that below
Museum,
for
yeah.
sure. You should.
Yeah.
If you've never been to the Potato Museum, you should totally go.
Yeah.
It's amazing. And then we left Idaho, came back down, regrouped everything, and
For just a couple days.
packed back up. Yeah. We just kind of replenished our supplies, and we headed out again.
Yeah.
This time, we're heading for North Carolina. So the second leg of this RV trip took us to Tennessee, where Derek's brother lives, North Carolina, where our daughter lives, the Washington, D.C. Temple of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, which is where we were married some 46 and a half years ago, and which was closed for a 4-year renovation, well, COVID and renovation, and just recently reopened, so that was fun. The Philadelphia Temple and the Outer Banks region of North Carolina. So we'll get to
And of course, the highlight was seeing the grandkids. That's always great.
Yeah.
And it was great to see my brother and their family. And it was really neat to visit the Wright Brothers National Monument there in Kitty Hawk, North Carolina.
No, there's a story behind that.
Yes,
As
there
to
is.
why we wanted to go to Kitty Hawk. A few years ago, I think it might have been 2015 or 16, I ran the Air Force Half Marathon. I know you hardly believe it, but this picture right here is proof that I actually did it. I have the medal on, and I'm standing at the finish line, and they for sure have the best finish line.
All those
of all
planes.
half marathons. It's all lined with very cool planes. It was really fun. While we were there, we stopped at the Wright Brothers Memorial in Dayton, where we learned about how the Wright brothers got their start in their quest to be the first to do controlled, sustained flight.
Yep. And it was a real feat because everybody was trying it. There was a lot of people working on it.
It was a real race. It was a major.
Yeah,
it was a major race. Yeah. And so they went to Kitty Hawk for a number of reasons. I do have a video about that, and it talks about all the reasons why they went to Kitty Hawk and the subsequent, their successes and some of their failures.
Try again really applied to them.
It was
Boy.
very cool. It was a really, really interesting stop. So we highly recommend the Wright Brothers National Memorial.
Both the one in Kitty Hawk and the one in Dayton, they're both really good.
Yeah, they're both very good. It's really cool to see them both. And so that's one of the big reasons that we wanted to go to the Outer Banks. So we're glad that we were able to do that.
After the Outer Banks, we came back to visit our daughter one more time, going from there to down through Louisiana and then into Texas by the Crescent Coast. And we stayed there for about a month. Yeah. And then from Port Aransas, we basically just
made a beeline, came home.
Yeah.
Yep.
That whole trip was, we have mileage for both the RV and the Jeep. The RV miles was 8,930 and the Jeep was 6,871. So the total of this trip
and the Disneyland trip.
And the Disneyland trip.
In the RV.
In the RV. So our RV trip total.
Okay, so we're going to jump in here before we give you the big mileage total for the RV trip and let you know what we paid for gas, because it went kind of,
yeah, it was all over.
It was crazy. It was all over the map.
Yeah.
So we're going to tell you where we got the most expensive and where we had the least expensive. We got a spreadsheet because he always has a spreadsheet.
So the least expensive was in Orange, Texas. And there were several that were really close there in Texas, which was about $2.95. So between $2.95 and just under $3, we've got that in 3 places
for the
in
RV.
Texas.
I think that there was one place around $2.69 in Georgia, but we used the Jeep on that in that occasion. So we didn't fill the RV up. But I don't think we could get in there.
Yeah,
It was
and
too
I
small.
think there was a place that was close by, but by the time we left and were filling up the RV, the price had gone up.
The price had gone
bit.
up just a little bit. So I think the very lowest we might have seen, but we did not fill the RV up, was about $2.69. Otherwise, $2.90.
$2.95.
$2.95.
And it was definitely cheaper in the east than it was in the west.
By a lot.
By a lot. And
meanwhile, back at home.
Yeah, the most expensive we paid was $5.10 a gallon in Green River, Utah.
Yeah, it's like here where we live. It's like, why? I don't know.
In
It's
any
a
case.
mystery.
And the gas mileage varied quite a bit. When we go uphill, it doesn't do as well. When we go downhill, it does better. Amazingly.
What do you think about that?
The average was 6.28.
And that's towing the Jeep.
Yep, that's towing the Jeep. And
Was usually
we usually had like about a third of a tank of
fresh
water.
Back to the main video and the grand mileage totals.
The RV. So our RV trip total was 16,561 miles.
So let's put them all together. So the grand total was 45,600 miles. That is 1 3/4 ways around the earth. And we did that in 1 year, less than a year. That was amazing.
That was,
Just
I doubt we'll ever
amazing.
do that much travel again.
So the greatest was the RV trip, then came the Israel trip, and then the Germany trip.
Yeah.
So even though the Germany trip was longer than the Israel one, it was more miles.
Yeah.
So it was really, really, truly quite a year. Quite a year. Next year.
Next year, yes. We're going to be staying closer to home.
Yeah. We're kind of ashamed to admit this, but we've lived in Utah for 46 and a half years, and we've never been to the Big Five.
To all of them. We've been through a
We've
little
been
bit.
through Zion, but that's really not count. I mean,
We didn't
yeah,
really go
we
and
didn't really
explore
go.
it a
So
lot. So
we are going to try and hit the Big Five this coming year. We have kind of a fun thing coming right up January 2nd, which we will keep a surprise, but it is a big bucket list item for me. So we're going to check that off. And then one other thing, we're going to try to get tickets to the Albuquerque Hot Air Balloon Fiesta, and that will be in October for next year. But the tickets you have to get them in January. I struck out getting tickets last year. So if any of you have any tips, please leave them in the comments for how to score an RV spot in Albuquerque.
Yeah.
So because we really like to do that. So in 2023. So we've got a lot of fun things planned. Most everything close to home, which we're good. So there will not be another 45,600.
we will not be going that far.
There will not be.
this
There
next
will
year.
not be. So that's going to do it for this wrap-up episode. We are so glad that you joined us for this season. Thank you to our new subscribers. Thank you to our vintage subscribers, those who have been with us for the whole time. And we wish you a very, very Merry Christmas.
And a very happy and healthy, prosperous new year.
You bet. And until next year, restless friends, you take care.
Bye.